Dear friends, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor, a privilege to be able to join you at this single parents conference. I think that this is such an important conference, something that we don't pay enough attention to in our society. My team at CVL recall how many times I have spoken at our meetings through the years about the phenomenon that I describe as the phenomenon of the deadbeat dad. For about 30 years now, I have been very, very involved with the widow support program. And that initiative of working with poor widows, challenged widows, started because on my return to Nigeria in 1982, I faced an unexpected from someone that I knew well who was dying and was worried about the fate that his wife would face if he passed. And indeed, every fear he had manifested. So I took interest very, very early in the plight of widows and began to work to do something about it. In that process, I came to be aware of much more than just what happened to widows. I came to be aware of a phenomenon that is enormously troubling in our country. This is the phenomenon of the deadbeat dad, men who walk away, literally walk away from their families and pay no heed, pay no attention, and leave a woman who is usually less materially able to carry on with the business of raising the children that they have both born. I, in some cases, have been brought to great sadness to observe the lives that many women lead, the struggles, the pain, the anguish, the effort to raise children, where the man who's responsible is irresponsibly or carelessly carrying on not too far away, doing that which is really sometimes reprehensible, but sometimes just a shame because of the lack of care. And I find many times, very sadly, that in a natural way, as the children grow up, they begin to ask after their father and all of that. But I've seen a few bitter children, very bitter, who don't want to have anything to do with such fathers. But it's not about what the children think about their fathers now. It's about what damage is being done to our society by this phenomenon. Many societies have found ways to deal with this matter. We, unfortunately for us, are caught in transition from an old order where traditional values led society to sanction it in different ways, the behavior of men and women, and to get people to leave their responsibility. The clansmen will get together and sanction the man for not living up to his responsibility and all of that. As we move from that, way of doing things into a new order, the new order is not yet well established. In some societies that have become quote-unquote modern, there are laws that are very, very, very clear and are implemented stoutly by public authorities. In the United States of America, they hunt down deadbeat dads. Courts, impose penalties, impose expectations of behavior from people whose marriages have broken down or whatever may have happened. But we don't have a system functioning quite that well. We don't have a fallback system for women to run to for protection with their children when they face challenges. And this cannot continue. Because one of the things that happen to children, and this came to me very clearly in the work that I have tried to do with widows, is that the loss of the presence of the man in the home is a huge enough hit, even in the United States and countries like that, where the law still compel the men to behave in certain ways in terms of meeting their obligations to the children. The fact of single parenting alone is significantly responsible for changing social behavior patterns. I give you an example. There is a US magazine, a US News and World Report, which for many years, going back to the, I guess, probably 40s, have conducted an annual survey of what the most unacceptable behavior of children in schools were. And in the 50s, he asked teachers, what's the most terrible thing that happens here? So students talking out of turn, that is somebody trying to speak when he has not been asked to speak or she has not been asked to speak. Or chewing gum in class. Those were the kind of typical huge problems. Well, by the 90s, it was bringing guns to school, shooting another student for a pair of sneakers, and, pregnancy was more routine for 15-year-olds, and so on and so forth. And in one of your efforts to understand how this has evolved, the single most critical factor identified was the absence of a man in the family. The structure of the American family, as it began to break down, was having this impact on discipline. Well, in working with widows, what I found, of course, is that the authority figure of a man being absent and the economic power that the man has, giving him authority in his home, being reduced as the single parent struggles. Very often children are not as, obedient, if you will, or easy to be guided as that. In fact, it led me to introduce in the Widow Support Program phenomenon, if you want to call it that, or an initiative, better still, where we had mentors of families. The idea was that these mentors would, in a manner of speaking, become substitute fathers. And in being substitute fathers, facilitate an authority figure, the man who can make a call to help when the child needs to get admission into school, the man who can rebuke a child that's getting wayward. If you know how much this kind of thing can do to prevent children from becoming miscreants, then you will find that the place of new arrangements with single parenting is very, very important. And so my hope is that as this conference runs, that we find a number of initiatives to hold on to, amongst them those of holding spouses accountable for their children on both sides, those of holding the family together. The family is such an important unit of society. Society suffers so much when the family breaks down. Third, a way of ensuring that if things do eventually break down, that everybody is aware of their responsibility to those children who did not ask to be born, but both of you decided to have that child, how both of you are made responsible and accountable for the well-being of those children. I think that this will help us to begin to navigate a new course. And very importantly, finally, values shape human progress. The reason the human race has made progress is because certain values have girded how men have responded. I think that our sense of community deriving from those values should enable us begin to, if you will, influence culture, shape culture, such that culture is sensitive to the weak, the vulnerable, the child that is there without the appropriate parenting, and very, very clearly a certain consciousness that the very first duty of parents is the education of their children. The late Pope John Paul II, in one of his very important encyclical to my mind, Abhorrent Exercise, makes this very critical point about parents being the first teachers of their children. Whatever it is that is happening to the state of the family, we have to find a way of not only reinstating but instating, if not already stated, the role of parents as the first teachers of their children. Society must make parents really be the true educators who make their children's future what they desire for it to be and what society needs for it to be. Thank you all, and God bless you.